Well, they say knowledge is power. So, how does knowing 10 semiotic sign classes impact on how we design or illustrate? Peirce defines in this wonderfully conceptually detailed but obtuse way 10 classifications of semiotic science. He also details 3 levels of semiotic delivery of the encoded meaning. Let us take a whistle-stop tour through how 10 semiotic sign classes can enhance how you visually communicate. Welcome to the 5th Semiosis 101 Omnibus edition from Season 3. If you have watched the weekly Semiosis 101 episodes before, then you already know I am Dave Wood, and I explain Charles Sanders Peirce's semiotic theory of semiosis, sign action, in design essential terms. In this omnibus, I collect 3 Redux episodes of Semiosis 101's Season 3 into a single edition. These 3 episodes can be watched back to back in this edition on the subject of Peirce's 10 simple to complex sign classifications. Season 3's overall semiotic theme is semiotic encoding, with a focus on how audiences make interpretations. What this season's theme means to you as visual communicators is that at long last you will see what semiotic science can be, are, will be. For any new viewers joining Semiosis 101, welcome. We will build your confidence to encode semiotic sign action into your own designs or illustrations during your own ideation phase to enhance visual communication. Why do you need Semiosis 101? Peirce's writing and terminology is very obtuse. On Semiosis 101, I translate Peirce's brilliant theory into language creatives will understand and can follow. After all, we study design and illustration and not philosophy, so we need theory centered to creatives' needs. Yes, that is why you need Semiosis 101. So subscribe and let us jump straight into the 10 semiotic science, Peirce's simple to complex classifications. So what if there are 10 semiotic signs? How does that help? Quite right. Knowing how something is structured is not the same as a positive impact on how you design or illustrate. So let us begin from the impact on visual communication back to the theory of this episode. On Semiosis 101, I have stressed semiotics is not a mechanical engineering approach. It is not a how-to step-by-step manual. Communication is between humans, the creative, and the target audience. It is qualitative, not quantitative. We have spent a lot of time across 2 seasons exploring how audiences interpret and how semiosis enhances and improves the visual communication successes. In episode 3.6, I described Peirce's first sign class in 3 words: possible, familiar, instant. From a creative's application point of view, what benefit does that knowledge provide you as creatives? Possible, familiar, instant. Whoopee-doo. So what? Yes, you are entitled to ask that question. Let me answer that quickly, but in doing so, I will build on this quick answer over the next 3 weeks. Graphic design and illustration has a complex job to do, to bear meaning through type, image, or both, beyond the denotational level. Visual communication in global 21st century societies has to work a lot harder to visually communicate above the social, cultural, visual noise. While the visual noise of competing visual outputs gets louder and louder, it is easier for people to disengage. Instead of competing with this escalating visual noise, semiosis offers a different tack. As semiosis involves the audience as interpreter of what they see, the mindful alignment of semiotic thinking with ideation aids the creative to work smarter, not louder. This is where Peirce's 10 sign classifications can structure a smarter way to visually communicate. As I have previously summarized, we can describe the semiotic sign action power of each sign class in 3 terms. Sign 1's sign action power can be described as possible, familiar, instant. Each of the remaining 9 signs can also be reduced to 3 words. But again, so what? a perceptual change in a creator's approach to designing or illustration can be, in the long term, more productive than learning a new tool in Adobe Creative Suite software. We are talking about becoming smarter about how you visually communicate. Small perceptual changes in creatives can enhance your ideation and impact on how you design or illustrate more effectively. These small changes I mentioned obviously come from applying semiosis. These perceptual changes via semiosis also will impact positively on how the target audience reacts to what they see. Remember, our desire, while the visual noise escalates, is to offer our target audiences a quieter and more direct connection to what we are visually communicating. This brings us back to possible, familiar, instant, and the 10 sign classifications. Let me explain. The first word describes the perception power of the sign. The second word describes how the meaning is represented. The third word describes the type of vehicle that the sign uses to carry the meaning. In this episode, we will avoid PEIRCE'S obtuse terminology in favour of designer-centric terms. We will revisit his terminology next week when we will discuss the sign vehicle concept in more depth. So let us now examine these 3-word descriptions. In episode 3.6, I explained these 3-word descriptions. To quickly paraphrase what I said, the first word in 3 explains the power the sign has to convey meaning to the audience. The second, the power of semiotic representation used, and the third, how the audience receives it via the sign vehicle used to convey the encoded meaning. Let me now break this down in more detail to explain what these mean to designers and illustrators so that you can begin to appreciate the semiotic sign power you can enhance your ideation with. First, I will outline the semiotic power the sign has to convey meaning to the audience. For regular viewers, it will come as no surprise that sets of 3 interdependent levels or triads will feature quite heavily. So, on to the first term. Let us begin with the perception power of the semiotic sign. This empowers the intensity of the semiotic communication from simple to complex. PEIRCE illustrates his 10 semiotic sign classes in an inverted pyramid. When looking at PEIRCE'S 10 sign classes, we read them in rows diagonally downwards from sign 1. In doing so, we can see classes 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 and 8 are grouped in the top left section of the pyramid. These have a perception power of possible intensity of semiotic communication. Below them are a strip of signs 4, 7 and 9 with an intensity of the suggested. Sign 10 in the top right hand corner has an intensity of the resolved. We will return to PEIRCE'S terms for Semiosis 101's designer-centric terms in the next 2 episodes. Returning to PEIRCE'S inverted pyramid of 10 semiotic sign classes, we can now outline the representation power of communicating the concept. Now we can see that classes 1, 2 and 5 are grouped in a smaller top left section of the pyramid. These each have a familiar semiotic representation power level. Under this power level, the larger grouping is at the bottom of the pyramid, grouping signs 3, 4, 6 and 7 with representation power of existent. A smaller grouping in the top right hand corner of 8, 9 and 10 have the representation power of proxy. I'm sensing a collective shout of "so what?" welling up in the audience. But indulge me for one more minute. I am nearly there with the theoretical context to give you the big finish. Finally, we can outline the semiotic delivery power of the effect of the sign on an interpreter. PEIRCE'S inverted pyramid of 10 semiotic sign classes now show a different power level combination. As a quality that can be perceived as ephemerally meaning bearing, sign 1 is the only sign class that has an instant sign vehicle. The next sign vehicle level is mediated, and the sign classes that use this delivery power level are grouped together as a strip of sign classes 2, 3 and 4. This means that sign classes 5 to 10 are at the delivery power level of agreed. PEIRCE defines this highest delivery power level as not a single object, but a general type which, it has been agreed, shall be significant. Now we have mapped out the theory, let me answer the so what. Like with any aspect of learning to be creative, the exploration is more elongated than its actual application. So the "so what" question is easily answered in an equally long and short way. Let's get the short answer to the "so what" question out of the way first. So what? Because. There. That is the short, glib answer. Now the longer answer. To summarise in a designer-centric way, the 3 levels of 3 states which each sign class is powered by can be listed as perception power, possible, suggested, resolved; representation power, familiar, existent, proxy; delivery power, instant, mediated, agreed. Each level exists in one of the phenomenological levels of firstness, secondness and thirdness. Each of the 10 sign classes' power comes from how the perception, representation and delivery interact. In the next episode we will go deeper, but to end this episode, let me just list the 10 signs power in designer-centric terms. 1. Possible, familiar, instant. 2. Possible, familiar, mediated. 3. Possible, existent, mediated. 4. Suggested, existent, mediated. 5. Possible, familiar, agreed. 6. Possible, existence, agreed. 7. Suggested, existence, agreed. 8. Possible, proxy, agreed. 9. Suggested, proxy, agreed. And 10. Resolved, proxy, agreed. What the lay viewer can see from this list, beyond any initial word soup, are combinations of how semiotic sign action can enhance the effectiveness of visual communication. It is up to the individual creative if they wish to become more successful at visually communicating. If so, the "so what" question is actually redundant. If not, then fine. But you will miss out on a strategy to get beyond the barrier of visual noise. In episode 3.5, I concluded with a designer-centric summary of each of PEIRCE'S 10 semiotic sign classifications power levels. These 10 power summaries were: sign 1, possible, familiar, instant; sign 2, possible, familiar, mediated; sign 3, possible, existent, mediated; sign 4, suggested, existent, mediated; sign 5, possible, familiar, agreed; sign 6, possible, existent, agreed; sign 7, suggested, existence, agreed; sign 8, possible, proxy, agreed; sign 9, suggested, proxy, agreed; and sign 10, resolved, proxy, agreed. Great, job's a good one. That is surely that then. No, this is just my current attempt at putting PEIRCE'S obtuse terminology into language useful to creatives. This is not my first attempt or the only attempt out there to explain PEIRCE'S 10 signs. In his 2017 book Fire Signs, A Semiotic Theory for Graphic Design, Stephen Skaggs has also made inroads, and in my 2016 PhD appendix, so did I. Back in 2014 to 2016, I found that I could not sidestep these 10 semiotic sign classes and pretend they had no impact beyond an interesting philosophical thought exercise. My whole PhD practical component was constructed around sign 4, which in turn nested signs 2 and 3. PEIRCE referred to sign 4 as any concept object of direct experience insofar as it is a sign, and as such affords information concerning its concept object. In PEIRCE'S precise terminology, sign 4 is a dissent indexical sin sign, suggested, existent, mediated. Can you see why I have attempted to reframe these terms into actionable analogues? If you focus on the final word in the set of 3, we see the delivery method, the sign vehicle. That is what we will focus on this episode when delving into the 10 sign classes. Back in 2014, 3 years before Fire Signs was published, I was a fairly lone voice in seeking a more designer-centric explanation of PEIRCE'S 10 classifications. The closest explanation of the classifications using visual examples was an academic paper from 2009 by 2 Taiwanese information scientists, Andrea Huan and Ting-Rui Chang, called Social Tagging, Online Communication and Peircean Semiotics, a Conceptual Framework. So in this episode, I will synthesize 10 designer-centric explanations for each sign class's delivery from synthesized examples from my PhD and Skaggs' Fire Signs book. In doing so, I will also focus on how each sign vehicle semiotically gets meaning into the world. PEIRCE'S names for the delivery are qualisign, synsign and legisign. But on Semiosis 101 I have translated these into designer-centric terms as instant, mediated and agreed. Back in episode 3.6 I introduced sign 1. Peirce calls this a romantic iconic qualisign, but I have defined it in a top trumps way as having the semiotic power of possible, familiar, instant. Sign 1 is an ephemeral sign class of a quality on the edge of perception, which has possibility for a visual but weak, meaning-bearing, instantaneous connection with the target audience. It is fleeting and it triggers familiarity, which aids semiotically grabbing attention without any determining representation. Skaggs gives an example of graphic elements that are composed to form larger, complex displays. The delivery of any meaning the quality may suggest is an instant perceptual hit or not. As the only ephemeral sign vehicle in the 10 classes, a qualisign can only be instantly perceived as meaning bearing before the next sign class takes over. The next 3 sign classes have mediated delivery of meaning. Peirce calls this a synsign. Peirce's sign 2 utilises sign 1s to mediate its visual meaning bearing existence. I agree with Skaggs, who discusses this class in the context of image and refers to all instances of depiction. Perceived as an instance of meaning bearing, its delivery is through visual mediation that is a one-off presentation depicting possible familiar qualities, sign 1s, of the concept in a deliberately crafted represented form, sign 2. Sign 3 can only exist as a possibility of being interpreted as the concept through a mediated existent likeness to it. The audience's attention to the interpretation is facilitated by nesting sign 2s within sign 3. Once the sign 2 has grabbed the attention, sign 3's possible relations to the concept can be perceived and interpreted. The last of the mediated delivery sign classes is sign 4. Peirce's famous example for this sign class is a weathercock representing the concept wind. Wind is mediated through interpreting the existence suggested direction the weathercock turns and points. It is a sign class of direct experience and nests the 2 previous classes. Nested sign 2s mediate the delivery of the familiar qualities of the concept, while the nested sign 3 provide possible existent things to frame the experience. Sign 4 then builds on this mediation to visually suggest the experience. Skaggs gives an example of a franked postage stamp as evidence of the act of postage. The stamp design asserts nothing, but the franking of the stamp asserts the experience. The next 6 sign classes all fall within an agreed sign vehicle class, which Peirce calls a legisign. In the next episode, we will go into more depth with these 6 sign classes, but as this episode concerns itself with the sign vehicle delivery, we will just focus on that in more depth. Now, Peirce names the delivery of these 6 sign classes as legisigns. Legi as in a law. It is easier to think of this delivery method as agreed. 3 classes that have this agreed delivery have perception semiotic power levels of possible, 2 have suggested levels, and sign 10's perception power is at a resolved level. Moving to the semiotic representation power level, sign 5's level is familiar, while sign 6 and 7 have existent representation levels. Sign classes 8 to 10 can be described as having proxy representation levels. Okay, this is sounding like a game of top trumps now. What on earth does any of that have to do with illustrators or designers? Think about your audience. They are not blanks. They have experiences that they bring to anything visual, which will frame their ability to interpret. At the highest semiotic sign classes, sign 10 can be described as resolved, proxy, agreed. Peirce obtusely calls this sign an argument symbolic legisign. So let me unpack this sign class to contextualize it to contemporary visual communicators. At this level of semiotic sign, its representation needs to be general enough, proxy, to ensure as many audience members will understand it. The concept it is indicating must generally be known and understood by as many as possible. 2. Resolved. To ensure the audience reaches and accepts the intended meaning, the delivery of it leads them to an interpretation that is generally agreeable. Within visual communication design, sign 10s form signage, branding, etc. anything that needs its visual language to communicate on a general level to many audience members. Sign 10 is a bit of a visual communication holy grail, as there can be many sociocultural and linguistic incompatibilities which may become semiotic noise interfering with its success. But there are successful visual examples. Republic of Ireland based graphic designer Juan Solis has researched the humble signage of gendered toilet facilities around the world. This piece of ubiquitous signage utilises an agreed method by using proxy representations for male and female bodies to resolve how to indicate in a non-verbal ways which toilet to use. But Skaggs and Firesides reminds creators that no graphic display has the power on its own terms to be conclusive. But we can use semiosis to improve our chances. The focus on agreements in the case of sign classes 5 to 10 as a semiotic delivery method makes you creators consider what the audience already know and how you can encode for that to improve the opportunities to visually connect with as many people as possible. In sign classes 2 to 4, the delivery method acknowledges that the level below agreement has to be built on successful mediation. After all, to accept a general agreement that this is that, the audience has to be visually guided to that interpretation. Before mediation or agreement that this is that, the audience's attention has to be hooked and maintained. So, ephemeral semiotic qualities are employed to instantaneously hook the audience. I will caveat the terms I have defined as still in a process of evolution. Can you suggest more apt terms? Last episode, we explored the idea of a sign vehicle, a delivery method for the representation. I've described PEIRCE'S 3 levels of power in a sign class as comprising of perceiving, communication, representation, and delivery. Each of the 10 sign classes weave these 3 levels together in different assemblages of power, ranging from simple to complex. This is the crucial lens for creators to approach the application of this knowledge. So far, I avoided PEIRCE'S obtuse terminology, but I will quickly reference it here to then jump into design-centric terms. I will then be able to discuss how 10 classes can help to semiotically encode meaning. Perception of communication power. Rhetoric, dissonant, argument. Possible, suggested, resolved. Representation power. Iconic, indexical, symbolic. Familiar, existent, proxy. Delivery power. Quali sign, sin sign, legi sign. Instant, mediated, agreed. As I caveated last episode, my designer-centric terms are still evolving as analogues to PEIRCE'S. What I want to focus on now is your visual communication intent, and then look at how the 10 classes will help you. We will do this through 3 lenses of perception, representation, or delivery. Once we do that, you will see the opportunities of the 10 sign classes. Don't worry, this is not a memory test. There will not be an exam. This is about gaining knowledge to develop your own semiotic frame of mind. Teaser alert to season 4. When visually communicating something to someone, the sign classes are adaptable to your needs. Let me quickly give you an example. Your client wants you to provide a design or illustration outcome so their audience can buy baked beans. Remember, much of PEIRCE'S theory of semiosis is predicated on 3s, triads. So the semiotic perception, representation, and delivery of the visual communication have 3 degrees of intensity each. This means semiotically that there are 9 variables on communicational intensity available to the creative depending on what you need to visually communicate. 10 sign classes providing 9 levels of communicational intensity. Let us get a quick overview of what these intensity levels are using our overtly consumerist example of buy more beans. I will group the intensity variables under the lenses of perception first, then representation and delivery. To make this relevant to creators, I will frame each variable under a creative intent too. In other words, what the client wants, then why the audience will be who, and only then how it works semiotically. Okay, beginning with perception, we will start with the low semiotic intensity of a possibility of perceiving. PEIRCE'S ream. Sign classes 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 8 start from this visual possibility. The client needs to sell tins of beans. But does the audience know what a baked bean looks like, or a tin can? A red ovaloid shape possibly shares a quality of a baked bean. A grey tube possibly has a look of a tin can. The audience at this stage has had their attention hooked by just perceiving possible shapes. The visual qualities of beans or tin can now build further meaning in the audience. We now increase the semiotic intensity to visually suggest what to perceive. PEIRCE'S dissect. Sign classes 4, 7 and 9 start by suggesting X could be actually Z. This middle semiotic intensity level visually suggests more to perceive. The client needs to seduce audience desire with visually suggested beanie deliciousness. People need to eat. Beans need selling. People want to buy quality. By crafting the beans visual language, the audience can become more certain that the visuals suggest delicious beans. Finally, at a higher semiotic intensity perception level, PEIRCE'S argument, only sign class 10 works at this resolved perception level. The client needs the audience to only buy beans from them. They are in business ofs. They want to lead the market. The client's branding resolves an unspoken agreement that a particular visual language used can only mean that client's beans. This relies on the audience to socially and semiotically resolve that the visuals can only represent this brand's beans. Now, moving on to representation, we will once more begin with its lowest semiotic intensity utilizing visual familiarity. PEIRCE'S iconic representation. Sign classes 1, 2 and 5 utilize familiarity to begin the semiotic representation of the concept. The client needs the audience customer to know the sealed tin contains beans. The opaque nature of the tin means that its label indicates what is inside. The typography can say beans, but the eye needs seducing rather than telling. Qualities of familiarity are utilized and nested in many ways to build not just meaning but also desire to eat what is inside. Iconic elements such as succulent use of reds, multiple beans with glossy highlights suggest home-cooked deliciousness. We will now increase the semiotic intensity to move from familiar possibilities to representing existing things. This level utilizes the familiar to interpret existing things, PEIRCE'S indexical representation. Sign classes 3, 4, 6 and 7 represents existing things, whether these are real or imaginative things. The client wants customers to cook and eat their beans at home. Label images often employ the suggestion of just cooked servings on toasted bread or on plates. Together with the nested iconic images, these images represent existing things that can be found in any home. Finally, at a higher semiotic intensity representation level, PEIRCE'S symbolic representation, there's a social cultural agreement that X is proxy for Z in this visual context. Sign classes 8, 9 and 10 utilize the power of visual meaning bearing as an agreed proxy for something else. So how can one image semiotically be a proxy for something else? Let us quickly explore representation as a proxy for something else. The client needs the customer to repeat buy only their beans, so they need to quickly identify the brand on a shelf. When in a social cultural way, certain colours, iconic, and images, iconic and indexical, are semiotically perceived as a proxy for a product, then brands can build complex meaning from simple visual building blocks. The last set of semiotic intensity levels focus on how the semiotic sign delivers its meaning. The low intensity level of semiotic delivery of meaning is instant, PEIRCE'S quality sign. Sign class 1 is the only class that relies on an instant delivery that this quality suggests Z. The client needs the customer to know there are beans in the tin to sell beans. So as a semiotic instant delivery of meaning, how can this happen? The visual iconic representations on the label instantly suggest beans on an immediate interpretive level. The middle intensity level of semiotic delivery of meaning is mediated. PEIRCE'S synth sign. Sign classes 2, 3 and 4 rely on a mediated delivery that, in this context, X proposes Z. The client wants their tin beans to stand out from the competitors and be perceived as delicious. The semiotic sign action between the label's visual elements work together to mediate a proposal that these tin beans are the best. The highest intensity level for semiotic delivery of meaning is agreement. PEIRCE'S legisign. Sign classes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 rely on an agreement that delivery as X, it means Z. But an agreement? The client's brand wants to be the market leader in tin beans, so the customer buys more. The audience who shop for beans agree that when the client's brand is recognised, it means quality beans. Semiosis helps to structure that branding. In design-centered terms, we can explain PEIRCE'S 10 sign classes in easier to understand terms. Sign 1, possible familiar instant. Sign 2, possible familiar mediators. Sign 3, possible existent mediators. Sign 4, suggested existent mediators. Sign 5, possible familiar agreed. Sign 6, possible existent agreed. Sign 7, suggested existent agreed. Sign 8, possible proxy agreed. Sign 9, suggested proxy agreed. And sign 10, resolved proxy agreed. But so what, I hear you cry. Come back for the next 2 episodes to see how these sign classes work in actual design and illustration examples. See you all again for the next Semiosis 101 episode. Semiosis 101 is unique in helping illustrators and designers to semiotically enhance your visual communication skills. One designer-centric semiotic video at a time. Remember to hit subscribe to be notified when the next episode hits.